All right, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to go back and work some extra problems of kind of each of the types and make sure we have, all those kind of figured out. So it wants us to write in general form, basically the formula for this parabola. All right, so what do we need? Well, we're going to need that vertex, which is 1, 2, so -2, 3. We need another point. I'm going to use that one maybe. 0, 2. And so I've got my vertex. Again, that's HK. If I can write the H and the K, and it's -2, 3. And I want some XY point because that's another point I'm going to need on the graph. And that's the 0, 2. Now I can plug all that into my function, which is the y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And so y, we said, is 2 equals a, which is what we're going to look for because we need to write it in the formula, so we need the a, and that's not given on the graph. All we are given is some x and y and h and k. Okay, and so x was the 0 minus, and then the h was a -2, and then that's squared, and then plus k, which we said was 3. And so if we simplify on the right side, we have 2 equals a times, well, minus a minus is plus. That's 2 plus 0 is 2. 2 squared plus 3. All right, so let's subtract 3. So minus 1 equals, well, 2 squared is 4a. So divide by 4. So a equals a -1/4. Okay. Now we can get this in standard form because we've got our a and we've got our h and k. So f of x equals -1/4 times x. Now we already kind of saw what this was. It's plus 2. And then that's quantity squared plus 3. Okay. All right, well, again, x plus 2 squared. That's just taking x plus 2 times x plus 2. So that's going to be x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4. And so we know x squared, 2x, 2x, 4. Or we take and say, well, when we do that, that's 4x. We're going to take directly from here, we can get square the first one, and then we take it times 2 times this, so that's 2 times 2 times x, which is 4x plus 4. And so that gives us the -1/4 times x squared plus 4x plus 4, and then plus 3. All right. Well, now we get to distribute that quarter. That's a negative there, so that gives us a -1/4 x squared. And then when you multiply there, that's just going to give us minus x. Multiply there, that's just going to give us -1. And then we have plus 3. Well, that's not too bad. So that says f of x equals a -1/4 x squared minus x plus 2. Okay. And they want the general form. And that's what we have here. And this one is our standard form. So again, if they'd asked for that one, we were done there. But if they asked for the general, then we had to go ahead and multiply everything out, and we get our general form. All right, what about the next one here? We're back to ones where we find the min, the max, the axis of symmetry, the domain and range, and x and y intercepts. All right, so let's do that domain and range because, hey, domain's pretty easy. That's all real numbers. All right, range. All right, so what do we have? We have a negative. So a less than 0, that's going to be a max. And so our range then we know is going to go from -infinity up into that k value. So now we got to find k. All right, so what is h first? H is equal to a minus b. Well, that's going to be a -2 all over 2a, which is a -1/3. All right. So now what does that give us? Well, negative gives us a positive, but we have a negative down here. So the overall is going to be a negative. Now, this is a -2/3 here. So let's just write what we have. We have 2 over 2/3. Multiply by the reciprocal. And so that's gone, and we get that cancels, and so that's a -3. Okay, so that's not bad. Okay, now what is k? Well, k says plug in that into this function up here. So -1/3 times -3 squared minus 2 times -3 plus 3. So if we go ahead and do this all by hand, that's a -1/3. And -3 squared is going to be 9. And then that's going to be plus 6 plus 3. And so 3 is going to go in here 3. So that's going to be a -3 plus 3. So that's just going to give us 6. Okay, so we don't even need a calculator. We can do that one by hand. And so our vertex is equal to, we have -3, 6. Now, what do we know? Well, we know it's a max. So the max is 6 at x equals -3. So that's one thing we need. The max is 6, so this is going to be the max here. So now we have the domain and range also found. So we're done with the domain and range. And we've got the max, so we got this. And we also have the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry is x equals, and it's a -3. So we have that. So that's pretty cool. What else do we need? Now we just have to get our intercepts, okay? So if we plug in 0 for x, what do we get for y? Well, that's 0, we get 3. And so we get the y-intercept of 0, 3, okay? Now, what do we want to do here? This is one where we can do the quadratic formula, and I'm not going to factor that one, but we could use our h and our k and our a and write this in the form. We could say f of x equals -1/3 x minus h, which is going to be plus 3 squared, and then we have plus 6. So we could put it in this form and solve when y is 0 and get out an x value, because that doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. And so we'll subtract 6. And so minus 6 equals -1/3 times x plus 3, the quantity squared. Now I'm going to multiply by a -3, so I'll multiply this by -3. That gets rid of the fraction there. And so now I have -3 times -6. Maybe I should put it in parentheses as well. So it's going to be 18 equals, now we have x plus 3 squared. Now I need to take the square root of both sides. I don't know, let's use blue this time. So it's going to be plus or minus the square root of 18, and I'll take the square root of that. Well, the square root of 18, remember, is the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. And so that's going to be plus or minus 3 square root of 2 equals x plus 3. Okay. Now I need to get rid of that 3. So x equals a -3 plus or minus 3 square root of 2. All right. So now we've got our answer. So our x-intercepts are -3, oops, not comma, -3 plus 3 square root of 2 comma 0, and -3 minus 3 square root of 2 comma 0. And so those are our two intercepts. Okay. Now again, you could have done it with the quadratic formula and you would have gotten the exact same thing. But I decided I wanted to do it this way because that gives it so we know what the standard form is, and then we can solve from there. Okay. All right. Now we're supposed to solve the equations over the complex numbers. So that first one we can do two ways. We could subtract 36 from both sides, and do it like we did the first time, except the first time it was set up a different way. So we could subtract 36, and we could say x squared equals a negative 36. And now we can take, and I don't know, let's do, I don't know, whatever that color is, the square root of that side plus or minus the square root of that side. And so then we have x equals, now this is going to be plus or minus square root of 36 times the square root of negative 1. And so that's going to be plus or minus 6. And this, remember, is I. Okay. Now, that's the short version. Now, if they said they wanted it over the complex numbers and actually wanted a complex number, 0 plus or minus 6i. And that would be our solution. Now, could we use a quadratic formula on this as well? Yes, we could. Let's go ahead and do that. X equals minus b, so minus 0, so it's just 0, plus or minus square root of 0 squared is 0 minus 4 times a, which is 1, times b is 36, all over 2 times 1. Okay. Now, what do we have here? 4 times 36 is 24, that's 12, 34. So it looks like basically plus or minus the square root of a negative 144 divided by 2. Now we're going to do the same thing here. That's going to be plus or minus the square root of 144 times the square root of negative 1 over 2. Well, the square root of 144 is 12, so plus or minus 12. Square root of negative 1 is I over 2. So it's going to be plus or minus 6i after you cancel. Okay. And again, exactly what we found the first time. Now, the second one, we have to do the quadratic formula there because I can't factor it. I can't do anything with it. So we just plug it in and see what we get. So we have a minus and minus 8 plus or minus, excuse me, negative 8 squared minus 4 times 5 times c, which is 5, over 2 times 5. So that's going to be 8 plus or minus square root of negative 8 squared is 64. Now we have 5 times 5 is 25, times 4 is 100, all over 10. Okay. Now this one we don't know. We didn't do it another way. So whatever we get here is basically what we're going to get here. So let's go ahead and simplify that. That's going to be 8 plus or minus the square root of 100 minus 64 is 36. It's going to be a minus 36 over 10. And so this is really 8 plus or minus the square root of 36 times the square root of negative 1 over 10. And so then that equals 8 plus or minus, well, that's 6. That's I all over 10. Now we have to put it into a plus bi. And so it's going to be 8 over 10 plus or minus 6i over 10, which we can reduce to, well, 2 goes in here 4, 2 goes in here 5, so that's 4/5. And 2 goes in here 3, 2 goes in here 5, so it's plus or minus 3/5 I. Okay, so A is 4/5, B is the 3/5. And so those are two values. And so, in function in the complex number formation, that's what we would get for that one. All right, what about the next one? We'll take a break and we'll come back with the last set, I believe.